Thank you. All right, everybody. Welcome, friends, to our new venue. I'm going to call to order the February 26, 2025 meeting of the Brainerd HRA. And Director Charpentier, can you please call the roll?
Yes, roll call has gone around. I will call it just quickly the first time. Decker.
Here.
Deblock. Here. Duval.
Here.
Erickson. Here. Yeager.
Yes.
And Verkota.
Yes.
All are present.
All right, thank you. And be sure, if you would, to make sure that your microphones are on. It should have a illuminated green dot. You would touch the center button, push to get that on. So at this time, we're at the review of and approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve, Yeager. Do you have an addition?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could, we're actually looking at an adjustment, pulling new business 6A off and bringing that back in March. Staff did review this after packet went out, and there were some additions that we needed to make for changes. We'd like to bring back a red line version.
All right, any questions on that? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the revised agenda as presented with the removal of business item 6A.
So moved, Yeager.
Is there a second?
I'll second Verkota.
Verkota, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are on to approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of January 22nd, 2025. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve, Wayne Erickson.
Erickson, is there a second?
Second, Yeager.
Hager, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, same sign. We're on to item 5, unfinished business, none. New business, item 6, none. We are at 7, staff reports, bills and communications, financial report. Karen,
All
hi
right,
over there.
Hello. I am up. My memo is up on the screen. It is page 15 of the packet, attachment 3. And so we are presenting January's financial statements to the board for approval. I did want to let the board know that an update on our audit schedule. So we did have on-site field work the second week of February for Brainerd HRA. We don't have a draft back yet, but I think we've worked through all of the questions, still awaiting a draft for review. The unaudited financials are due to HUD through the REAC system the end of the month. There is a couple-week grace period in that, but they're coming up on a due date. And then for Brainerd South and Crow Wing County, we had on-site field work this week with Clifton Larson Allen. And the unaudited financial statements for Brainerd South are due the end of March through a different system in REAC. So staff will work on that. As far as I know, everything is clean, no findings or issues that have come up. So very pleased for all the hard work that goes into the audit throughout the entire year by all staff. So hopefully nothing comes up and it's a clean audit that we'll present. And then also I did want to let the board know that in the payments for January, there is a check for urban companies for our North Star project for $193,650. That actually was presented with December financials. The check was lost in the mail. We stopped payment, reissued it. So that's why you're seeing it again with January's payments for approval. And then we did draw that down out of capital fund in January as well, that full amount. And then as far as our ratios, charts, financials, they're obviously all starting over now for the new budget year. So we've got 1 month of information and year-to-date presented. Are there any questions that I can answer regarding January's financials?
Questions of staff? Karen, there's no action needed by the board to submit the unaudited reports to the feds, or?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Other questions? Hearing none, I would be looking for a motion to approve the January payments as presented.
So moved, Yeager.
There is second.
Second, Deblock.
Locke second. Any discussion on that other than that you did a double header on the 200,000 now. You get a
I know.
A
Well,
world
I'm going,
record, 2
I'm keeping track of it. I'm seeking awards, yes, exactly, so.
So, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Thank you very much, Karen. We're on to the HCV report. Shannon, please.
Yes, my memo is attachment 4 on page 35 of the packet and up on the screen. So yep, the year started over, so all these numbers are gonna look a lot different than we just closed out. Through the end of January, our unit months leased was at 8.21% and HAP utilization at 8.94%. Quick recap of our voucher program, we issued 9 new vouchers. Most of those people are moving in March 1st and then some in on April. The crew was busy with 29 annual recertifications, 23 interim recertifications, 14 inspections, and we did end up with 3 terminations. We'd planned on bringing an admin plan update related to the waiting list update process for review by the board at this meeting. However, we'd also like to throw in our HOTMA updates that we just recently got. One of our staff went to training and brought back some really good information that we're going to use to guide those updates. So we'd like to bring that back possibly March. We just want to get it kind of one and done rather than have to do it piecemeal. And the waiting list update process won't happen again until a little later in the year, so we're good for timing on those. Quick update on our fostering youth to independence vouchers. We did reach out to HUD to return that voucher. We just have the one left. We haven't received any referrals in a year. We haven't had any usage. We have been in contact with LSSU Services and the county. Those are our MOU partners, and we had discussed the possibility of returning it to HUD as an unused voucher, and we came to the agreement that, especially since it's not being used, let's return it, see maybe if it can be used someplace else. It doesn't mean that we won't work with youth, it just means that there isn't this one designated voucher kind of just hanging out there waiting for this very special referral. For the Bridges program, Carrie's working with 11 participants right now. Total Bridges HAP request, 9,052. We did get the contract amendment for the overutilization funding. We were able then to return that on 2/6, and that allowed us to pay our Bridges rental assistance on 2/7. So we did not need any other assistance. We were able to use those funds for that. Also, as the funds had been received, we were able to withdraw our notice to discontinue the program, which was set for 1/31. So now we are all the way through this year. We should be good, and then we'll start our new program in July for Bridges. And then lastly, the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. There are 57 active FSS participants. Total amount of escrow right now is just over 16,000 for 36 of those that are actively escrowing. And I believe that Eric is going to talk a little bit more about Bring It Home state rental assistance, but we did just find out that grant application package was released. It is due back in March, and so we have some thoughts on maybe what. We haven't really had time to dig into it. It just came out, actually. So the next step is going to be to look at that, maybe make some plans, and then try to figure out our timeline for returning that for review.
Shannon, could I ask you just tip your microphone up there you go. Thank you. Questions for Shannon on the HCV report? Thank you, Shannon. Can we move on to did you? Okay, I'm looking now at a housing management report.
Yes, that is my memo on page 39 and attachment 5. Vacancy report is attached. One thing that I did want to note in the stats, and I have it in my memo here, is that there was a slightly higher than, I guess average, higher than anticipated amount of outstanding rent owed. That was related to some tenants that were just over 2 months, and so we have a couple that are in eviction action. We're working on some agreements, and then we do have some repayment plans that we're trying to establish with some community partners to preserve the housing if we're able to. But if you notice an exceptionally large balance, that is why. Right now, our vacancy, we did end up with 1 at the end of January for North Star, 100% for Valley Trail and for scattered sites. Everything else is looking pretty good on the stats. It is, starting over fresh with the new year, so we'll see those stats kind of build over time. Valley View, we have one vacant unit right now, but we have a move-in at the end of this month, so that will be filled. Our Ross program is going strong with 21 active participants. Patsy had hosted a health and wellness fair in January, which was very well attended, got a lot of good participation from some community vendors, and some tenants actually gave some really good feedback on upcoming events, so we're excited about that. And Patsy's in the initial planning stages for a container gardening project, which we think will help us access the tenant participation funds. So we're looking forward to some plans coming forward on that. She's hoping to work with a newly formed group of tenants for an activities group to help get encouragement or get participation up in the building for that. And one of the last things then, we are working on a house rules and handbook update that will be rolling out a little bit later this spring. The last time our handbooks were updated was in 2019, so definitely do.
Thank you. And these container, these like balcony, so each unit would have their own access to a balcony garden? Is that kind of what the containers would be?
That's what we're thinking right now.
Perfect. Cool.
With all those south-facing balconies, it would be such a great spot for it.
Great. Questions of staff? Yes, Mr. Yeager?
This might be a really dumb question, but I've noticed before on monthly stats, we use the term notified. What exactly does that mean?
That means your name has come to the top of a waiting list, and we are reaching out to see if you are interested and begin the screening process.
Perfect, thank you. That's all.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Shannon. We are on to the rehab report. John, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Duval, members of the board. That memo is up on the screen and on page 45 of your packet if you're following along. We had some exciting news in the rehab world. Our preliminary proposal for the Small Cities Grant was deemed competitive. So we're going to be allowed to submit a full application, which will be due April 16th. I always talk about how competitive these funds are, and as you can see in there, there was approximately $25.5 million requested, and they anticipate having between 16 and 18 million available to award. So definitely competitive, but well worth it for sure for our communities. So, and kind of carrying on that down in our rehab projects, the current Small Cities Grant we have, just a reminder, we have 12 units of rental rehab and 8 units of owner-occupied rehab. Of those 20 units available, we have 18 in process right now. So, any questions for me on any rehab items?
Questions for John?
Thank you.
Thank you, John. We are now moving on to the Executive Director report. Eric?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of items on my memo, and then actually a couple of things that have popped up since my memo was published, so I'll go through that in review here. Bringing Home State Voucher Program, as Shannon shared with you guys, the RFP, the request for proposal, was just released last week by the state of Minnesota, or by Minnesota Housing. We are currently trying to wrap our heads around this, something, a program that we've been knowing that has been on the horizon for the last year and a half. Again, this is from the 2023 legislature and legislative action that pumped in $1 billion into housing for the state. This is a part of that. It is state vouchers, so similar to what our Housing Choice Voucher Program, this is just on the state side. We did have to apply for it, or the intent to apply, we did have to submit that earlier per their regulation, and we are now in the timeline for getting that RFP reviewed and then brought back to the board to give you our recommendation on what we would like to do. We're tentatively going to do that at our regular meeting next month because in 2 months from now, we'll have already had to have submitted that prior to our April board meeting. So a little bit of lifting that we'll do with our staff here in the next couple of weeks. Not a lot of surprises out there. We're getting a little bit better information as far as how the state is going to fund the housing assistance payments. So just like we've got HAP on the voucher side, on the federal side, we have HAP on the state side. Those are just those housing assistance payments. We were worried that we were not going to get pre-funded on that, meaning we would have to pull funds from our general account to cover that. That is not the case. The state is allowing up to 3 months now of pre-funded HAP, which is very much what we were pushing for as a housing group to the state. So some good news that's continuing to trickle out about this program. We certainly have some questions on it. Staff will have questions, but we'll wrap our heads around it and get you a report on what that RFP looks like and what our recommendation is as far as moving forward in that March meeting. Any questions about that the board has at this point?
Questions of the director?
Submit like a dollar amount for this, or how is this working again?
Yes, so the state gives us an appropriation, and Shannon, do you remember what it was off the top of your head? It's in the 350 range, 350,000-ish,
Okay,
I
and
believe.
it's just dependent on our size and the scope of city, or?
Yeah, so each agency that runs a federal HCV program basically got an allotment kind of divvied up by the state. And it is our choice if we decide we want to move forward with it. Our kind of state organization for NARO has encouraged us all to apply or buddy up with another agency to try to utilize our funding. The state is trying to get these dollars sprinkled out throughout the state to have the maximum amount of coverage. In the thought of trying to buddy up with another agency, it's really more or less for the agencies that are getting 3, 4, 5 different, or 3 or 4 or 5 vouchers or the money to make that many work. We're in the estimated between the 30 and 40 range. So, staff has continued to talk about if buddying would be a good idea. The allotment that we're getting is not enough to hire a full-time equivalent staff person. So those are the big questions that we're talking about, is how are we going to administer this? It's 30 to 40 more vouchers on the street, which is great for the city and for the county, because we do our vouchers countywide. But we still got to staff it appropriately and make sure that we've got enough bodies to make a good go of this. So those are the big kind of overarching questions we're asking as staff, trying to work through that. It's a new, very exciting program, but has just as many questions as are probably the positives that are coming with it. We don't have to apply for it, but again, our NARO, state NARO group is urging us to do that for every agency, and if you don't want to administer the program, to try to buddy up. So looking at all of those at this point, and more information to come next month.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Yeager?
Mr. Charpentier, do you know, with this grant, do you know what the parameters of the grant awarding are? Is it a points-based system? Will we be getting feedback on,
Right.
assuming either way?
Yes. Yes and no. As part of a scoring RFP, like a true RFP,
Yep.
The intent, as I understand it from Minnesota Housing, as it's coming out, is that each agency that is allotted funding is the funding that's already been more or less approved by the state for those agencies. So yes, there will be a scoring entity to it, but really that scoring will happen and be utilized if an agency such as the Brainerd HRA declines their grant, and then another nonprofit can come in and bid for it. That's where that scoring is going to come in place. So as it has been explained to our agencies from the state, is that obviously we know the amount of money that they're earmarking for us. We can apply for that plus some administrative costs to get this thing going. But the number of dollars with vouchers is kind of set. We're not going to get more than that, but so there is a competitive aspect to it, but it likely wouldn't come down to our agencies.
We don't have a measurement of what that pre-score is before we put our staff time into this. That's where I'm driving with this. Is
I don't know that we'll have that information.
we may, okay, understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions for the director? So Eric, with the 3-month pre-funded, what they're doing is simply giving you a quarter of your allotment on the front end. Otherwise, if it wasn't pre-funded, we would have to spend down $75,000 or something like that and then seek reimbursement. Is that?
Correct. It would be a reimbursement, and
Have a fixed amount that's a target it's directed towards us.
yeah, that's the idea, is that you could go up to 3 months for pre-funding on HAP. Now, again, the calculus that we look at for HAP, housing assistance payments, it's our best educated guess, because if we've got vouchers that are being filled that are a 3 or 4 or 5 person household versus a 1 and 2 person household, our HAP is going to be higher on the 3, 4, 5, because those rents are just more expensive. So kind of a moving target. That's why the state hasn't said you get X amount of vouchers. They said, here's your range that we think you're going to be in. Now it's up to you guys to administer it statewide, because every community is different. Every county's costs are going to be different. We know what our admin reimbursement will be, but we don't know what our HAP is going to be exactly. So again, estimates, but we think we can get there, based off of what our federal programs do.
Thank you. Other questions? Otherwise, please proceed, Derek.
Yes. So next item on my agenda or on my staff report is just outlots E and F. So we've talked about this over really the last year as well, or even longer than that. Reminder, just kind of brief overview. In many years ago, we purchased an outlot in Brainerd Oaks. We have tried to figure out a way to develop that, seeing as the initial plan for that was going to be parkland, and the message that we've heard from our city and our parks was that no longer was likely in the long-range plan. So we've been looking for ways to get that developed. We came to this board about a year ago to take action to say if we could find or utilize the current purchase and development agreement that we have with Level Contracting out there to develop out this outlot, that we would utilize that, and that we were actually going to put forward $100,000 of our general fund to support the infrastructure, the roadway, sewer, and water that needs to go in to actually be able to access this outlot. On February 11th of 2025, we finally went back to the Crow Wing County HRA board to look for more assistance, because the hinge point or the difficulty with getting this developed has always been getting the infrastructure to the outlot, and that is outlot F, or is that's outlot E, and we own outlot F. We actually own both of them. So the deal that this board put forward was, we're going to support infrastructure to get you there. The developer still wasn't able to make those numbers work. We looked to the Crow Wing County HRA to see if they would be willing to almost match what we have done, and this body has pledged our land, the outlot E and outlot F, towards that project, as well as that $100,000. We went to the Crow Wing County HRA board to request $150,000 in funding to again put towards that infrastructure, roadway, and sewer, water. That body, the Crow Wing County HRA, did agree to fund $150,000 from their general fund to support this project, in support of getting 9 twin homes or 18 units built on that outlot. A big win for us. We have been able to work with Level Contracting. That was at least the minimum amount that he would need to move forward and say, yes, I will go forward. Keep in mind, we are going to continue to look for funding available through the state of Minnesota, through the Greater Minnesota Housing and Infrastructure Grant Program that will likely be released late March. But with the funds that have been allocated and agreed upon at this point, the developer is willing to go forward. So this is an update to this board. This is good news. This is exciting news that we finally got a developer to say yes. With the amount of funding we've been able to put towards it, we are moving forward at this point to move outlot E and outlot F, to convey those to the Crow Wing County HRA at this point. And then we will include this in the purchase and development agreement that we have with Level Contracting that covers Brainerd Oaks, Serene Pines, and Delmar Estates. We expect that permits will likely be pulled already this year for this. Some reasonings for that from the developer. There are some code enhancements or code changes that are going to happen in 2026 that will make these units even more expensive to build. So there's an impetus to get moving on this project, the sooner the better, prior to 2026, to make these a little bit more cost effective for the developer. Again, just an update for the board, so you're aware that this is going to move forward finally. We are happy to report that. Would be happy to take any questions at this point for that project.
Thank you, Eric. And to be clear, these are building code changes and not city code changes or anything that the city of Brainerd is doing to impact.
Correct. These are state changes to the building code that are coming on board in 2026.
Thank you. Any questions for the director? Eric, thank you very much.
I do have a couple other items that are not on my memo, so I'd be happy to chat about those. I always like to try to get out and talk to service organizations. Was able to meet with Brainerd Rotary earlier this month, and then yesterday met with the Kiwanis Club just to talk about the work that we do, try to highlight the good work that we are continuing to do, and some of the other projects, such as our scattered state replacement, our tax forfeit property policies, just to give these other service organizations an idea of what we do to get our work out in the public. So I always like to share that with you. It is a joy to be able to do that and try to do that a little bit more intentionally this year. Just came back from a director's meeting. We have a director's meeting once a month. I've mentioned that many times. I would say that there is some uncertainty with our directors as far as what our federal funding might be for our public housing world and for our voucher world. Just a lot of questions. I would say there's some uneasy feelings with a lot of our directors out there, just with the amount of questions that we just can't answer at this point. Wanted to make the board aware of that. There's an impending budget decision that needs to be made at the federal government side by March 14th. That's either a continuing resolution, a reconciliation budget that gets approved, or a furlough and shutdown. As I've spoken with my staff, we're going to start kind of planning for, we always try to plan for the worst and hope for the best. There could be a shutdown. We don't know. We're not trying to be overreactionary, but we do need to make intentional decisions to make sure that we can be prepared if any of those three happen. We're hopeful for at least a continuing resolution, but we don't know. So wanted to put that on the boards, at least out in the purview, so you can be aware of that. And yeah, we'll just keep posted on what's happening there. I don't have any of the answers, and I don't know that anyone could say that they do have any of the answers on what we've got coming up. So more to come. This came in while I was on the drive back today from Fergus Falls. We have an ownership interest in Trail Ridge. It's another property out by our Valley View and Valley Trail properties that has a loan against it from Minnesota Housing that got extended about a year and a half ago, if you guys remember us discussing that at that point. That owner, the majority owner, and the managing partner is looking at selling that property. They just made us aware of that they've entered into an agreement with someone to list that. So I don't know any other information on that at this point. We will follow up with that. We've had discussions with that ownership group. We know that they were planning to get to this point. We didn't know it was going to be this quick. So keep you posted on that. We do have an ownership interest in that, so we would have to sign off on any decisions. I would think we would need to bring that to the board. So more to come on that, but we do want to make sure that we would hope that can stay an affordable property even upon sale, but we might not have that opportunity to direct that at this point. And then we are here. This is our new home for the foreseeable future. So thank you guys for making the trek here. Excited to do that. We do have this on that live stream out on the cable channel. So that is being streamed or being broadcast there. Hopefully there are people tuning in there. I know on our WebEx we do have a number of guests that are logged into there as well. So we appreciate that. And going forward, we're going to continue to learn and make sure that we get our technology correct. And I guess that's where it's at. Does anyone from the board have any feedback on this? What we're doing, how we're doing it?
Yes, Mr.
I think it's great. Thanks, Nick, for the coffee. Also held up his end of the bargain right off the bat. First meeting. Boom.
Yep.
Thank you.
I will just add this as well. So as we've been looking in how best to do this, if we're going to preserve, we're recording these meetings, obviously. We do have a YouTube channel that we have set up for the Brainerd HRA versus the city of Brainerd. We do know that we could link from the city of Brainerd's website to our YouTube channel. We're still working out that kink, I guess, as far as the technology side. So we're going to refine this and kind of move towards that, and more to come on that, I guess. And then with that is what I've got.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions for the director? All right. Well, hearing none, we're going to move on to commissioner comments. Mr. Erickson, can I start with you?
I think this is a great venue. I'm glad we're here. Thank you for letting us be here. Did we get that? Did you go over Eric's review? Did that all come in?
That will be our next item on the agenda. After adjournment, we'll adjourn to a closed session.
Okay.
To discuss that.
Okay,
So that's just up ahead.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Erickson. Mr. Yeager?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one item here. I just want to say, if any of you have been around town, you've noticed the change in our landscape in the downtown area on the easterly side, as our Thrifty White building has now been removed. And it's certainly exciting, and I 100% support their appetite and their ambitions to get that project going, and would love to see that happen any way possible. I would also like to mention that with progress comes a certain degree of responsibility, and I would ask kindly Mr. Charpentier, Mr. Broyles, if you would be so kind as to just reach out, maybe to, not necessarily specifically, but to the folks at the 805 project, and mention that that responsibility comes along with items like keeping the sidewalks clean. I'd also like to kind of have a feel of what their erosion plans are there. We had some kind of issues last year with the weeds getting kept and maintained, the mowing and so forth, and this has been a big change to the downtown area, and I would just like to have you guys, if you would be so kind, to just reach out to this group and just say, hey, look, there's some expectations here and responsibilities to your neighbors downtown, and we just want to make sure that we're good stewards of the land there, both with ourselves as well as our partners in these projects. And so that was all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Ms. Rakota?
I'm good. I got nothing. This has been nice. Good spot.
All right, thank you. Ms. Decker?
Great spot for the meetings, can bring guests to hear what we do. I love it. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Block?
About the same that Janet said, excited about the new place and that interested parties are able to see what we're discussing as it happens.
Great, thank you. Yes, a nice venue. What I do miss is the ladies and knights of the round table. We are now the ladies and knights of the ark. With a C. But yes, very nice to be in this particular setting. I just wanted to share probably non-actionable reflections as I was reading the Sunday papers, and kind of you go through the legals and you see, we're starting to pop up the foreclosure notices again, the breather that the COVID pauses has had on that. It's expired, and now you're starting to see the churn of properties coming up, and it's, foreclosure's a process of that doesn't necessarily have many winners. And it struck me as I was looking particularly at some of the houses in the city that, the amounts due are really super modest. And is there, the questions start in my mind, is there a role or an avenue to kind of to step into a foreclosure process? You have private investors that wait on the sheriff's sale or that side of the equation. But is there a time to get in before that step in the process, not to necessarily rescue someone who's not been able to maintain their credit with a mortgage, but in the end of a foreclosure, you have somebody that was housed that is now unhoused, and you have a bank that needs to be made whole on the loan, and then you have a house that probably in that intermediate time degrades. And is there an opportunity somewhere in here to be able to work with a lender to perhaps soft land a property so it doesn't get so degraded, the lender can be made whole, and when the foreclosure process is concluded, the person who was foreclosed upon not only you know, they don't have to retain the right to the property, but at the same time, can you connect them to some of that untapped equity in the house to kind of land them unhoused, yes, but with some financial resources that otherwise would have just gone out. And, you know, that's the risk that a real estate investor takes, and they make their investment of their own capital, and then that's their margin they take. But is there a place in between those two where maybe an entity like the HRA or some other public entity can use grant funding or other resources to go in, make improvements to that property in between, and the promise that some equity will come to the person that's being evicted, so that they land somewhat whole. They have an interest in not letting the house degrade further is the bottom line. So yeah, these are the kinds of musings to think, is there opportunity here? And I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know what the right entity is for that. Is it you know, an agency like HRA? Is it someone like the Initiative Foundation? Is it Habitat for Humanity? I don't know. But it just struck me that I feel a gap in there that could make a lender whole. It could somewhat make the person foreclosed upon in a better financial situation, and we would have a better house to put onto the market and not go backwards in the quality of housing. So there's my musings for the time. So with that, our next meeting is scheduled for March 26th. And at this point, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3A to conduct the Executive Director Charpentier's performance review. Is there a motion?
So move, Jaeger.
Second, Erickson?
Okay, any discussion? All right, well, hearing none, we are going to adjourn to closed session. Thank you. We'll take a minute or two here to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, honey.